All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7:04 p.m. We are starting close to on time for the first time in probably 2 months. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ellis, otherwise known as the Admiral. And today, of course, let's not scare people away with not Tetris right away. I should always have a nice, like a cool shot to start with, like this or something. You know, should always have a cool shot to start with. Um, Let me grab the link and send it to where I need to send it because we always do this in a three-phase setup. We start the show. I tell the people of the world about it on our Discord server. Link is in the description. Um, and then we play a little bit of Not Tetris. Hello, Yankee. We play a little bit of Not Tetris while we wait for people to file in. And then after we've done that, and only after we've done that, do we tell the general public via the Trainz Discord server. Which I don't know if anyone comes in from that because, I don't really expect much from it. It's a public Discord server with a lot of people in it. And doing self-promotion is a relatively sort of thankless thing. Not that anyone would ever think to thank someone for doing self-promotion. But of course, buy trading cards. Links in the description, theironhorseman.com. And other than that, I hope we just have like a normal episode. Last time I did a bunch of gutting of the AI. And like even it's not in a situation where it's I should probably get the to-do list out. It's not in a situation where we can really mess with it too much further without some real heavy-duty lifting, I think, because we have to rebuild staging. We have a whole bunch to do, and in fact, all of the consists that we have in staging right now, I feel like we should probably catalog and list, because I'm gonna forget what they are. Is the gist of it? They're a record. They're useful. They supply information. So these are bridges that we're going to have to cross sooner or later. I don't know exactly when, but it's in the process of the next update, because I think I've expanded the scope of the next update to sort of be a dick around ready version of the route, and that includes things like eye portals, and that is the worst place I could have landed that block. That's also not good. Things like eye portals, staging yards, whatever limited automation that I think is stable. Yes, my love. You've got something on your face. Are you just gonna like stand there and stare at me? Is that what this is? I see you out of the corner of my eye, making spooky poses at me. I'm terrified. But yeah, should be a normal one. Hopefully, we have a lot of scenery to do. Is sort of the elephant in the room. We still have a lot of scenery to do. We will have a lot of scenery to do for a long time. If you are here because you want to see me work on a town, then you're in luck, because you're going to see me work on a town for the next 3 years. Just estimated. Good evening, Mopac. I don't know what realistically I could / should be doing to speed up my current process. Aside from just like dedicating a second night a week to Tolbrand, which honestly I'm not really willing to do. And I'm sure Gloria would not be willing to do either. And dedicating more hours in a single night, I just don't think I can do. I get burned out by the end of 3 hours, and that's even with what I should be doing, which is sort of changing up whatever task I'm working on every every hour or so. That's something that I've in the past made a stated goal, right? Because I don't want things to get simply outsourced. Yeah. I'm sorry, the tariffs prevent me from doing that. The yeah, the I don't know if I can, dedicate more than 3 hours a week, and I'm sort of wondering what I'm missing, right? I'm sort of wondering, okay, am I shirking certain tools that would help me out? Do I not know about them? Am I going slower than I could be going? And I the real question is in all that is anything that would allow me to go faster something that would maintain the same like relative level of detail, maintain at least the same ballpark of detail, right? Because like the stuff I'm working on right now is not particularly detailed. It's not crazy. It's every house has got every plot of land has a house, has a driveway, and has a fence, and that's sort of the bare minimum. Um, and or has a defined boundary. And there are instances where, in real life, where not everyone has a fence or anything like that. These aren't things that are universal. I'm not positing them as answers to the question of how much detail is enough detail. That's not good. But they are a good place to start for the vibe that I'm looking at. You know, um, the white picket fence Americana, scrapbook brush in 2.0 is great for doing textures and trees. I am doing that. I am doing that, and in fairness, it is genuinely better than the old copy paste method, even just because I can use it as a brush. Um, okay, shoot. I see your message, Yankee. I'm gonna have to respond to that once I lose because it's an actual question that I can't be snarky about. But in order to respond to you in some capacity, I will say I saw your mock-up of a PN Plymouth, and I love it. So I hope you get your hands on one of those things. Um, Maybe I should just like read 5 words every time I clear a line. That implies that I'm going to be clearing lines regularly. That's not. Oh no! If that went a little bit faster, turns out I can make them go faster. Must go faster. That was terrible. That was awful. Those two were supposed to fit together perfectly, and look what I've done with them. I swear to God, I'm not throwing. I'm not throwing, but I'm toast. Damn it. Um, I signed up to work the PN booth at the Big E, and I wrote my name in for Saturday when I meant to sign up for Sunday. Is there a way to change that? I'm going to be there both days, so it's okay if not. Um, I mean, if I don't know if Jack has taken the thing home yet. If he hasn't, then just go in and scratch your name out and fill it in the other day. Or he will release the schedule later on of the people and the days, and you can just tell him, hey, whatever. Or, even better, get ahead of it, just verbatim email that to Jack Romano. Or put it on Groups.io or, someplace where he'll see it. Um, so, because he's going to be organizing that. Um, is there a rule that... I suppose not. We've had non-English articles before. I just got asked, is there a rule that links in Terminus news must be in English? Which, that's a new one. Hello, Comrade Pat. Okay. Alright, let's get this show on the road because, hello, Kaiserin. Let's get this show on the road because it's Thursday, my dudes, yeah. Alright. What are the easy things to tackle? Because we did this block last time. We get some big houses in here. Very plain, very simple. I need to do trees and shrubs, and this whole area needs another scenery pass. In complete honesty, it's not bad for being far from the track, but trees really make it. Trees really make it. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to do 3 different things. That's 3 different things. Because we're gonna break at the hour to do stuff. We're gonna work on throwing down some houses and buildings over here. We're gonna do the AI stuff, and similarly probably do some seeding of the route. I would like to do 2/3, 2/3, scenery work because that's something that needs to be done. Here, we're gonna do houses here and here. Then we're gonna fix these roads and make the blocks 200 feet instead of 300 feet. Um, because I did some research on Google Maps and did some measuring, and yeah, my blocks are way too big. So let's just go with house. We have a lot of row houses. That's an engine house. This is a 2-foot engine house. This is adorable. I almost threw it down just instinctively because I thought it was cute. Let's see. Welsh house. This is actually cool. I like this. It's a double. It's a duplex. So it might even fit in this area if one might assume that maybe at some point it wasn't. Although, look at this thing. There's no way it wasn't a duplex at some point in life. Yeah, and we need to skip all the warehouses. We just need houses. But I'm gonna try to power through this. I'm gonna try not to get too hung up with. Place hot to go. I'm not gonna get too hung up with the individual building selection stuff because that's how we spend forever on this. Let's just put this along the road here. It's interesting that you see, you'll see a rake of really nice houses, and then adjacent, you'll see a rake of sort of much less nice houses, typically like duplexes and things like that, and it tends to show a neighborhood that wasn't completely filled out by, or even if it's sort of checkerboard, wasn't completely filled out or wasn't completely filled in by the previous era of housing. And then prices dropped and they came in and filled in with whatever. Or, in a lot of cases, you have lots. You have lots that, the painted ladies or something I was aiming for. Although these guys are supposed to be in a row, are they not? Because they don't have windows on the sides. Yeah, nice house, abandoned house, nice house, mobile home. It's either a consequence of like a dramatic shift in property values and land size, like people selling off half of their lots, which is a fairly common thing. It even happened here. The lot that this house was built on was substantially larger than it is right now. So these are cool. I think I need to put them in their own spot because they're definitely supposed to be row houses. They're really, really nice row houses. But standalone, they look really weird. And I think the scale is off on them too, because look at the size of the stories on these. Compare them. Or maybe this is just a really small house, but it's noticeably different. Like this, from here to here is noticeably shorter than from here to here. Still, I don't think it's like wildly out of scale. That just has taller, ceiling, but okay, we're gonna use more of these depressing gray houses, like the turbo gray house. Another thing you find in these neighborhoods, because of the parcels getting sort of chopped up, is like houses that are unnervingly close together sometimes. In a lot of these, oh wow, that's really nice. In a lot of these places you have areas that like, oh, the mill built this, the local mill built out this this neighborhood, right? And then you have a lot of the same house. But in neighborhoods that grow organically, people that have double-sized plots or even like 1.5-size plots selling off a chunk and then leading to a, like imagine this guy had this whole lawn to himself and sold off this part, and so they built like this duplex on it which uses like all of the square footage allocation. And you can do a little bit of storytelling through that. I don't personally recommend sifting through every house you built and coming up with a story for it, if you're doing something small, then yeah, by all means, go ahead. But if you're doing something larger, um, let the chess speak for itself. And this is sort of a piece of advice that I don't think I've ever given, mostly because it just came to me to pull back the curtain. Uh, it's the idea that you don't have to come up with everything. You can just build stuff and let people derive conclusions, as long as it isn't wildly out of the scope of whatever it could be, you know? Um, or you have times where the mill laid out the street plan in the original neighborhood and the new developer came in and leveled the old places and built new ones. That happens too. Yeah. When you have the interesting thing is when you have a developer that comes in and sort of clears out the previous housing stock and replaces it, a lot of the time, at least from the jump, right? At least from like when that stuff is all planned and built, it's all planned together. So you usually get a sort of cohesive unit out of that, which is a very different sort of feel than a neighborhood that has gone through sort of generational change, All right, good luck in Uno, Pat. Um, and this isn't me saying that one is better than the other or anything like that. I know everyone will have their opinions, but when you're looking at the character of a neighborhood, these things are smart to think about. And you don't have to sit down, like I said, you don't have to sit down and figure out what goes where all the time and why. That little story I told with these two houses over here, is that true? Is that canon? I don't know. Maybe. It could be, if you want it to be. But I'm not going to sit around and attempt to develop canon for every square inch of this neighborhood. And frankly, it'd be kind of an exercise in futility to do so. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not saying that you should not, go through and make as much lore as you want, because if that's where you get your fun, then, by all means. I've made plenty of lore for this that is, in some cases, excessive and unnecessary. But if your end goal is to put a route like this together, right, then you need to know where to allocate your time, and you don't need to worry about if everything you do, strictly speaking, makes sense, right? You do need to catch yourself from... I feel like you need to keep yourself from going too far. It's a model railroad, it doesn't really matter. You can't throw a high rise in the middle of a neighborhood, or can you? Right? Because we are the arbiters, we are the creators of these worlds, right? So if I were to throw down a glass skyscraper in this corner here, you might say, well, that's very unrealistic, and I would say, yeah, it's unrealistic for our world, but it's here. So how could it have gotten here? And this is something that I really enjoy. It's something that brings me joy, even though it's easy to sort of write that kind of thing off. But to look at a terrain element or something like that is absurd on its face, and go, okay, well, how can we explain that? How can one explain this? What is the... What drove this to be here, and what does that say about the world, is really where I was aiming with that. What does this say about the world? And if there's a high-rise in the middle of this, is it some, magnate or mogul or, billionaire or a real estate developer that thinks this is going to be the next big thing and is trying to get ahead of it, and they bought up some land and they took a big gamble? The things that we see... Happy baby. Oh, you're cold. Oh! Thank you. The things that we see here aren't set in stone, and they will not be like this forever. We are seeing a window into a moment in a world. And, people say about model railroads, it should be 70 degrees and sunny, right? You know, you're making a slice into a world, and it's up to you to determine what that slice looks like. And that world may not stay the same before and after. What is going on here? What the hell? What? Oh, okay, that's why. It just doesn't like being on uneven terrain, I guess. Um, let's bring this fence out to here, and then to here. And so if we take our example where I've built a high-rise in the middle of our, I built a high-rise in the middle of our, residential neighborhood, and I say, well, make a, come up with something, right? If I don't give an explanation, which, I don't expect everyone to be reading lore docs, right? If I don't give an explanation, somebody has to come up with an explanation. Okay, let's come up with one. Let's go with the one that I just spit out, which was a developer thought this area was going to be the next big thing, and risked it all on putting down this vast amount of real estate. Bought up some houses, bulldozed them, built a high rise because it's going to be the next big thing, right? It is for sure. It's a sure thing. It's a sure investment. It's a great deal, right? Okay. Then what? Well, we don't need to really worry about the then what necessarily, because we don't need to look that far in the future. We need to look at today, where it's 70 degrees and sunny, and it's, actually, I think I have this set. Edit route. No, not in there. Edit environment. It's August 27th. Whatever. I mean, it shouldn't be 2018, but I can't roll it all the way back because Trainz begins at Unix time. Actually, is that the first day we played on this route? Oops, wrong thing. Hold on a second. I've never noticed this before. No, it's a Monday. Well, there's nothing saying we had to start on a Monday. But originally I had an idea that this was like June or something, But at any rate, what if, that obviously doesn't pan out because it's a high-rise in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and as a consequence, it ends up going, the firm goes bankrupt, the thing sits there and decays for a few decades, and then it's eventually knocked down. We just happen to be here at the moment where it has all the glass in the windows. Your world doesn't have to be stable, I guess, is what I'm saying. Stable is for horses. Alright. So, yeah. And the interesting thing is, personally, I don't like that. It's important to remember. It's actually important to do. To have your world, to accept the idea that your world might not be safe and sound, that it might change, that there could be significant changes on the horizon even, and that the window on the world that we are looking into right now in a given Trainz map is fleeting. I'm at work right now, so I'm tuning to the stream. I have the volume off, so every so often I switch tabs over to check in what's happening, even though I can't hear it. I can't remember if it was you or I can't remember if it was you or someone else that last time said, "Oh, I can't watch, but I can listen," and now you're saying, "I can't listen, but I can watch." That's a new one, I think. I don't think we've had that before. Either way, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad everyone's here. I could never get the hang of Thursdays, but here we are. let's bring this up the way. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with this corner here. Now this road is ending. I am not building a third bridge over this little river here, and we do need to figure out where this goes. I mean, it's going in that direction, but you know, we need to be a little more specific than that. I just saw some weird LOD stuff under this bridge. But yeah, a world that's in a state of flux, a world that is unstable, a world where not everything makes sense, because in our world not everything makes sense, and embracing that, or even just sort of not caring that much, is fine, is okay, and honestly, it's empowering. It'll let you get a lot more done. If you go, well, you know, this is good enough, right? And like I say, I don't think that gives every, you know, if you're trying to make a realistic route, and I have to preface everything with that, because I'm not here to undercut the people who are here to goof around, you know? It's a train simulator. Play in whatever way that you want. But if you're out here trying to make a realistic route, embracing the concept that the world is in flux does not give you free license to do whatever you want within the realm of possibility. If you want to, you know, if you want it to be defendable to the realism people, if you want it to be realistic, you're gonna have to still put some thought into it. But that's a cool little building. I'm here for the Ryan lore. You're gonna have to still put some thought into it, but not everything has to be perfect. Not everything needs a backstory. Not everything needs to be thought all the way through. And I'll say again, for the 30,000th time, where I come from, where I speak from, generally, almost exclusively, and this is why I need to caveat it a lot, because it deserves caveating, is a place of talking about building this route right here. Talking about building a route that is like this route. A route that is a fairly realistic interpretation of railroading, and when it comes to operations, something that is, oh shoot, something that is functional in every way that it can be, right? And for those of you that remember the route build competitions, which I'm sure we'll do another one of those someday, the various categories that I scored people on, it's just like my opinion, man, right? And those are the things that I strive for. The completeness of the world, the functional, you know, the way that the operations are, all the bases covered there. Let's use a chain link fence. And, you know, if your goal isn't to build a route like this, then don't take the things that I'm saying as critique, or as necessarily a standard to live up to. I am never going to look down on somebody that builds a route differently than mine. Alright. Yeah, the route reviews every 10 episodes that ended in the number 3. Yep. We did. That was a good time. But the route build competitions that we've done in the past, or, well, sorry, I'm conflating two things, because we did have route build competitions that were done to those standards. But what I'm really thinking of is the screenshot competitions. Those are similar. Same kind of thing. Oh, wait, where'd that low iron fence? I kind of liked it. Where'd that go? Okay. That's actually really nice. Okay. bring this way. Yeah, so I have a certain set of standards, I have a certain set of thoughts, but they're not the only ones that are allowed, right? There are lots of other ways to build a route, and they're all, equally valid. As long as you're making progress towards your goal, you're not doing anything wrong. And DT Cheney says, I want my route to be realistic, but that's the reason why I don't get work done on it. And yeah, I feel that. And that's sort of what I guess my thought process at this very moment is aimed at. It can be hard to make progress because you get all bound up in, you get caught in what some would call analysis paralysis. You get caught in that, okay, I don't know exactly what to put here, so I can't put anything here. You need to just go, Sometimes you need to put your foot on the gas and start winging it and figure out the gaps once you have more constraints, right? Once you have things figured out. Or once you have things done, you can figure the rest of it out, is what I'm trying to say. When you're looking at a world that has nothing in it, and you go, I don't know how to start this project, it doesn't really matter how you start the project. What matters is how you finish the project. And you're not going to find out what you like and what you don't, and what works and what doesn't, without putting without putting pen to paper. Without putting pen to paper a lot. Especially like this. And I didn't know what to do with the street grid for these towns, and we're gonna work on some street grid stuff a little later. But yeah, the hump in the fence does give it character. I agree. Putting a tree right here is smart. Let me just get that out of the way. I'll just throw down one of the big leaf maples. Oops. Whoop. There we go. So yeah. Oop. Text? No. Yeah, you need to let go of the idea that you're going to figure everything out, at least off the bat, and you need to just start putting stuff down. And if not everything makes sense, that's good. If everything makes sense, you're doing it wrong, because not everything in real life makes sense. At least not at first blush, Why is there no house here? Well, good question. Maybe it's because this piece of land is owned by somebody that doesn't want to build a house on it. Maybe it's owned by this group right here, and they don't want to sell it off, but they don't have a use for it. Maybe it is, maybe it's zoning shenanigans. Yeah, maybe this is zoned commercial, and so, nobody wants to try to build a commercial building over here next to the, next to the river. Maybe there was something there, and now the soil is contaminated with whatever. Or maybe the soil is just plain marshy, and you can't build anything there. When in doubt, blame the government. Yeah. I mean, and it's easy to say something like, well, zoning shenanigans, right? And it makes me think, when you do anything, you have to run that all the way back, right? You don't have to. You can get lost in the sauce a little bit. Okay, zoning shenanigans. Okay, well, what does that mean in this case? Well, that's zoned commercial. Why is it zoned commercial? And then you go from there. Why would something like that be zoned commercial? Is there something relevant in that zoning to the rest of what we're working on? Are they working on rezoning all of the parcels along the river to commercial? If that's the case, then can we show some areas that are blank, that are dirt because they bulldozed what was there before? These are things that, you start with, you put down something, right? You put down something, and you go, okay, well, why could that be like that? Instead of going and figuring out all the why first, which is helpful but can hold you back, instead of figuring out all the why first, you take just one one burst of inspiration, build out one little thing, and then extrapolate from it and say, okay, if this is like this, what else is like what? Um, I mean, I think finding one of those big farmhouses that are over on the left, or like manor houses or whatever, I think finding one of those is what drove me to consider this area as former farmland and have a set of manor houses along this road here. I think we're going to do our foundation trick here. Maybe. I kind of want to put an abutment or something. Yeah, and Kaiserin also points out that because it's close to the river, it might not be good for building, which, yeah, that makes sense, and that's why this guy's on stilts. Which I've got to lower it slightly because it's hovering. The problem isn't coming up with an answer for everything. It's keeping those answers consistent. And that problem is also a solution. It will help you figure things out. Okay. So I've still got 20 minutes in this segment. I don't know what to do. This area should probably just be a parking lot. Let's grab the dirt and grass and trees and whatever. This. Dirt leaves. My first thought is like this is some sort of like an Elks Lodge sort of thing. Yeah. And the combination of grass texture and grass, spline can be pretty potent. Because you'll notice how much darker that is than this, even though it's the same spline, because of that underlying texture. And it makes this grass feel thicker. It makes it feel denser and wetter and more difficult to traverse. And less cared for than this, even. A riverside catfish place. Honestly, though, that's really cool. Yeah, maybe it's a little southern, but, you can put, like, a little, if you built, like, a dock over here. I'm gonna do that. That's a really fun piece of character. Hold on. There's a couple of things I need to do before I do that, but that's a great idea. I'm gonna do that. Okay. Come on. Give me this little grass spline so that I can fill in these areas around the edge here. And I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with the former bridge there at some point. And I'm not entirely sure what. I'm gonna need to find some assets that are bridge abutments, but that can look appropriate without a bridge. This area doesn't strike me as an area that's particularly cared for. Alright, hold on. I think it's called Wharf. We've almost certainly used it before. What are you? That's not what I'm looking at. That's not what I'm thinking of. But look how cool that is. That's awesome. We gotta make use of that somewhere. This Wharf spline. Okay, that's a lot better than the one that I was thinking of. We're gonna have to try to figure out how to use this, because this is really nice. I want to put a little restaurant here. And maybe if we use both of them, but this one just frankly is really ugly. The texture on it is pretty horrendous. It's just a very old asset. And I can't, I'm not going to be rude to it, but it's not very good anymore. I think if we use the much nicer wharf asset as the edge, we might be able to get away with it, because you're going to be drawn to the thing that looks a hell of a lot better. Okay, I'm really wondering what Gloria ordered on Dash Mart or whatever, so that I could end up with another box of these, or bag of these sour gushers, which are not very sour, but they are very delicious. Okay. What if I type in fish? Billboard fishing. Boat, fishing, bass, static. Let's just put this up, like, here. That's way too modern, but whatever. Okay, we literally have fish. We've got some canneries. We've got a fisherman's wharf. I think I've used this. Actually, no, I haven't, but that's really cool. We'll have to use that. Fish! Not fishing boats. I need, like... Oh, I see fish shack. Okay, well, that's not... There's a problem with this. Well, there's two problems. One, I can't use it because it's not on the DLS. Why do I have it? B, it's not, you know... It's abandoned. Okay. Fish shack. Oh, here's one that's... Fish! Okay, what if I put this... What if I put this right on the edge here? Lower it so that it's in the ground, and then I can make it look sort of like the area in Wiscasset with the, like, clam shack or whatever. Oh, I've sunken it, is the problem. Come back. Not what I was aiming for, but sometimes you get what you get. Let's see if we can find something else. Ice plant, no. Rope pile. Seafood company. I've used one of those before. Steamship wharf, very cool. Probably one of Weibald's assets or something. Like, I have it because of him. Fishmonger. Okay, this is not working out. I was hoping to find maybe like a small building that I could fit into here, but you know what, we're just gonna have to... Let's see, is there anything I might be able to put... Should I rotate this? No, because if I rotate it, it's gonna stick out the wrong side, because it's, yeah, really long. Wait a minute, what if I turn it like this? Or alternately, I could make it not parallel to the dock. Use the asset for the house across the river. Or yeah, ooh, yeah. I like where your head's at. Hey, there you go. You. I bet you I can find other ones of these. Other ones of these things that are on stilts. Let's just put this at the end here. And then I need to find the next largest building. Probably one of these stores or offices or... Okay, the wash house is a good one. Welcome, railroad dude. I am working on... So this is, if this is your first time here, I'll give you the brief. This is the Tolbrin Peninsula. It doesn't look much like a peninsula right now, but that's the base of it, and the tip is going to be over there. And then this is... I need to stop talking before I say something that I'm going to regret. But this is the north side of a large peninsula where I've been building for many years now a realistic and detailed 1950s-esque route. It's far from perfect. It's far from done. This is not the kind of project where I am racing towards the finish line, certainly. This is a mega project. This is a forever project. This is a... We are going to be here for a very, very long time. I have made my peace with that. I'm going to actually move this building to the corner here. But right now I'm working in the Twin Cities of Bellington and South Bellington. In particular, this is South Bellington. This is actually the former municipality of Derry. I think it's Derry. No, it's Dells, right? I keep saying Derry. It's Dells. Dells. Um, yeah, well, the map finished me. Who's going to last longer, me or Tolbrand? I will be passing this on to my children someday. And let's see, we've got about 10 minutes before I'm going to jump and do something else. We've got a little fishmonger here. People can stand here and fish off the edge. I was talking about Railroad Dude. If you are familiar with route building in general, I was talking about sort of letting the route building take you, but there was something else that I wanted to get into, and now it's escaping me. There's something else I wanted to get into, and now I'm forgetting. I had the segue to it. I wanted to be inviting, and I completely forgot. Oh, the static, the way that the route is sort of static here, because what I've been doing for the last 20 minutes is preaching about how the world is dynamic, about how the thing you build is not going to be like that forever if you were to let time progress in your setting. Unless you're John Boyce and your setting is 17776 or 2020 or 20,020. The world is going to change. Quickly, slowly, sooner, later, it's going to change. And to that end, you can get away with having a map with some like weird incongruities, with some things that don't make a lot of sense, with some with some instability. And that is perfectly fine. I don't like showing that. For some reason, I am hesitant because the map doesn't change, because the map doesn't move, because I'm not going through and updating and showing the passage of time through this world. It feels a little off to me to show a world in which the passage of time can take place, even though that is so very important to be able to do that and to be willing to do that. No, this is a world where I've made it in some places intentionally static. Uh, I've shied away from construction and construction zones, and I've been very hesitant to have areas of the map where there is track that's under construction, or new stuff being built or whatever. Even though that's the name of the series. Ha ha ha! Very funny. Somebody was going to make that joke. I was just waiting for it. It's okay. I need a wider macadam thing because this is not working out for me. Oh, shoot. That's still one side. I need no sides. No! Where's the 48 foot with nothing on either side? This one has something. This one has something. I guess it just they've determined that there's no reason to have an extremely wide stretch of road with no sidewalks, and I would like to introduce them to like all of America. I was in D.C. This past weekend, this Veterans Day weekend. I went with my father, who is a veteran himself, and we went to a Steelers game. We also, of course, when in Rome, right? We visited the monuments. We visited the the National Mall. We visited one of the Smithsonian museums. We went to the Air and Space Museum, mostly because he's a Trekkie and I wanted to show him the Enterprise. But it's all right. I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna do this. We stayed close to where he was stationed. Uh, I can't remember the name of the fort, but it's in the Alexandria vicinity. Starts with a B. I could look it up in a heartbeat if I wanted to, but that's too much of a distraction. I think it's Fort Bennett. But in any case, we stayed out there, and the first night, well, we were on the train there, because we took the train there, because we're cool people. It was like, okay, so how are we going to get to the hotel? And I said, oh, that's a good question. Let me look it up. Let me figure this out. It turns out the answer was we're going to take transit as far as we possibly can and then get an Uber, because there are really no other alternatives. There was a bus. It would have been prohibitively costly in the way of time. All right, I'm done fighting with that for the second. Let's just put this right there. And I didn't, you know, it felt like a lot to try to figure that out when I'm there on vacation and I'm not familiar with the DC transit system. I knew figuring out WMATA, figuring out the metro was going to be its own problem. And then we get down to our hotel, and it's a perfectly nice place, but the problem is there's nothing around it. We're in, as Billy Joel would say, we're in no man's land. The closest restaurants you had to walk up the road for, and by the road I mean like a 6-lane divided highway almost, with no pedestrian accommodations, that went over a bridge that had nowhere to step that wasn't on the road. It was less than ideal. We did it though. We did walk up the road and get food. But it was like, damn, I could just get hit by a car right now and there'd be nothing I could do. Like, and it would be well within their rights. I'm just standing in the road. And so this is why when people goof on the need for complete streets in every little project, oh, we're replacing this bridge in the middle of nowhere. Why do we have to have a sidewalk to it? There's no sidewalks around it, whatever. It's like, okay, but you got to do that. You got to have sidewalks. You can't just shirk the pedestrian accommodations. We're past the point of pretending that pedestrians don't exist, even in places where it doesn't make a ton of sense, I guess, you know? Like, no one in the right mind would go to that hotel without a car, but we did. No one in the right mind would walk down the side of the street, to get to these restaurants, but we did, you know? We didn't really have a choice. It didn't make financial sense to call an Uber to go 3 blocks. Anyway, Railroad Dude says, I'm kind of familiar with route building because I'm working on a map for redacted stuff. And I'm also working on my fictional railroad, the Northeastern Lines, basically a better Gulford system. Well, there's certainly room for improvement in the Gulford system. Personally, I never really liked them that much because if you read, and this is my favorite nonfiction book, The Railroad That Came Out at Night, which is an excellent, excellent book about railroading in and around Boston. It was written in the late 70s, and it certainly captures that era, and importantly, it has the death of the B&M in it. It has the, B&M, the way it portrays it, right, is the Boston and Maine is getting back on its feet, finally. They made it out the other side of their bankruptcy, and they're looking very vaguely, very slightly, but truly at line go up. And then Gulford comes in, and bam, the B&M is gone. And so I've never really liked Gulford on account of that. They've got a nice paint scheme, I'll say that much. But the thing that I learned about Gulford a few weeks ago that I didn't know before, and this is maybe one of those things that never be afraid to admit that you just learned something. Never be afraid to admit that you just learned something, because it shows that you don't know everything. It makes you a real person, you know? I feel like there's too much of a conceit in the world for people to go, oh yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it robs us of a lot of very genuine conversation, and also just makes people feel less approachable. Okay, so here's the plan. We're just about on the hour, and I'm gonna get ahead of myself just a little bit to describe what we're gonna do here, which is this is two 300-foot wide blocks. That's too wide. I want to see if I can use these house splines for them, but they're too wide. So we're gonna drop them down to 200 feet, but we're gonna keep this intersection here and this road here because we don't want these blocks to be little squares. So, let me take a sip. And let's get a move on. But yeah, the thing that I recently learned, and again, the reason that I had to give that preface is I'm tempted to say that, like, hey, did you know? But life is a learning experience, and we should be treating it that way. And, you know, there's no shame in doing that. That Gulford one day, after a couple of labor strikes, right? Back a little bit. Gulford had purchased the Delaware and Hudson, lock, stock, and barrel. They thought they could do something great with it. Turned out they couldn't. It was just a gigantic money pit. And as a consequence, they had a pair of labor strikes. And as a consequence of that, what they ended up doing was saying, oh, the D&H is bankrupt, and just shutting the whole thing down. Which, if you know railroading, one, might sound a little bit alarmingly familiar with some things that happened with Class 1s these days. But B, you can't just do that, right? You know, you can't just say, oh, sorry, this railroad's closed. You know, the railroads are important. They're doing things. They're providing supplies to people and commerce and you know, like, you can't just, what do you mean it's bankrupt? What do you mean the D&H is closed? You know? How can a whole planet be closed? But no, yeah, they just said, yeah, sorry, D&H is done. We're done. And so they stopped running trains over the D&H. And, you know, the feds sort of trying to do their job, right, and keep commerce flowing, kind of had a brown trousers moment, I would imagine. The D&H is closed. What the hell are we supposed to do now? And so what they did was they grabbed the New York Susquehanna and Western, the Suzy-Q, and they said, you are in charge of the D&H now, congratulations. And so the NYSW had to run the D&H, and they did so without any subsidy for years. So, yeah, I didn't know that about Gulford. If you need a place to, like, make Gulford less of the hilariously incompetent bad guy, which I feel like Gulford to Pan Am is just bad to worse, right? It's got to be, like, that's got to be one of the biggest ball droppings in the history of dropping the ball, not, you know, puberty, in New England railroading, or in Northeastern railroading anyway, at least of the era, because yeah, I don't even know how else to put it. I don't know what else to say. What do you mean the D&H is closed? And it's just, yeah, we're not running trains over there anymore. So, you know, I am honestly incredibly impressed by the New York Susquehanna and Western being able to do anything with being handed that railroad. The NYSW, not a very large railroad. The D&H, a much larger railroad. You know, there really was nobody else available. Especially because, if I'm remembering my railroad history right, the D&H sort of continued to exist so that Conrail had competition. So you couldn't just tell Conrail to go take it over, because that would be antithetical to what they were trying to do with Conrail. Whether or not that was the right course of action, instead of just sort of saying, F it, you know, we're nationalizing the rail network. that's up to individual opinion. All right, let's do this. Those look much. These are starting to look like street blocks in Central Falls, which is kind of exactly what I'm aiming for. We're gonna find a new home for this building because I really did like it being right here, but I'm not sure where to put it now. Maybe this corner will be a safer place for it. So I'm not gonna move this road. At any rate, yeah. So the DNH got totally shafted. The NYSW had to deal with that. Was just like forced in. I don't even think they had a choice. You know, the DNH was forced into dealing with that, and then finally Canadian Pacific came in and buys the DNH, and then the NYSW is free. Oh, come on. Okay. Is that a spline point? Oh, it is. Perfect. Alright, we're going to do spline point here. We're going to need another 3-point intersection. Now, we are going to have to go back into... Oh, shoot. I didn't grab the right thing. There we go. We're going to have to go back into Surveyor 1 and smooth out these intersections because this is not good. Let's see. Straighten spline point. But just one more thing on the subject. It's interesting to me how, you know, Gulford is generally looked on with a reasonable amount of favorability. I don't know too many people who really dig on Gulford all the time, other than me, I guess. But you know, that's me. Even then, I don't hate Gulford. But man, Pan Am. Now, the thing that I want is that I want the Pan Am trademark to go to somebody else and become another form of transportation. Because it's already been through 2. Technically 3 if you count their flying boat era as a separate thing. But, yeah, it needs to go on something else. I feel like we should get like a... Well, before I knew he was insane, what I used to say was Elon Musk should buy the Pan Am trademark and then, you know, make SpaceX Pan Am Spaceways or something. Yeah, but, you know, and I even made that joke sort of after it stopped being in good taste, but I feel like I should no longer make that joke. Because, you know, well, have you watched the news lately? But to get away from that as quick as we arrived at it, I think it would just be very funny to have the Pan Am name continue. I wonder how much it is. I wonder what it would take to get the Pan Am trademark. Could we feasibly buy the Pan Am trademark? Could we have the Iron Horseman rebrand? We could have Pan Am steam locomotive trading cards. I mean, that kind of just sounds misleading, but, you know. You do what you can do. Okay. This is taking less time than I'd imagined it would. If somebody has bought the trademark, I'm not aware of it. That would be... I mean, if another airline has bought the Pan Am trademark, that's really interesting because there is not a lot of room in the market for new airlines. There really hasn't been for a while. We've had consolidations on consolidations. Like, yeah, okay, we've got a couple of budget airlines that have sprung up. But the airline industry does not strike me as one that, like, has that much room to grow. Yay, Pat won the Uno. You have Uno. Okay, I think this needs to get pulled back. I know I've just made a donut. That wasn't my intention. We'll fix that in a second. Okay, scoot that way. And then... Sorry, I just had to put all my brain power into fixing that one intersection because I didn't want to build it a third time. Okay. Okay, so there's our 2 blocks. Now I'm gonna try to fill these in with spline houses, and we'll see how it goes. Also, apparently the Pan Am Airways 2 Aeronautic Boogaloo is going to be super short. What does that mean? Buying a Piper Cub and slapping Pan Am on it. Yeah. I would just wonder who would be... How come I can't get in the menu? I would just wonder who sees the value in that right now. Not what you said, Mason, but like the Pan Am name. I feel like, you know, there are some people who remember Pan Am. There are plenty of people who remember Pan Am. There's no shortage of folks who remember Pan Am. I just don't know if that's like the right thing to grab. Pan Am will return with a short-lived charter service with the help of the Pan Am Museum. Oh, okay. Transatlantic routes with a business class 50-seat configuration. Oh, a 757? No, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. Where's the shoot? There's a Concorde that they're trying to get into service, right? Pan Am was gonna buy Concordes, and eventually they backed out. They decided not to do supersonic planes, and the French have the opportunity to do the funniest thing. Anyway, I missed what Railroad Dude was saying. Speaking about steamers, NEL actually started with steamers in the 1970s, 1974 to be more specific, and started off with buying the Edaville Railroad and then the recently bankrupt B&M, and then grew there. Okay, I assume that is your... I missed the... Oh, the Northeastern lines. Okay, yeah, I was going to say NEL. That must be your fictional. The Streamliner F units they had or have, I don't know much about Pan Am. Yeah, I mean, the thing you need to know about Pan Am is they did not give a damn. They were just, like, terrible at being a railroad, and they did not value... They didn't value, like, maintenance of their track and stuff. So, you know, that's something to consider. I did have to inspect Pan Am track once upon a time, like right before the purchase, right before CSX bought them. I was up. I had to do. Yeah, they were worse than Gulford. I had to do crossing inspections or crossing surveys or whatever you want to call them, up in New Hampshire, on the shoot. The name is escaping me. What is the name of that branch? There's a Rodney Kontorsky video for Pan Am. Nice. The Hillsborough branch. Still like to call Pan Am Gulford. Absolutely nothing changed after the name change. I disagree. Everything got worse. That's the thing that changed. They went from a shallow nosedive to a steep one. But yeah, no, Pan Am did not do a lot to endear themselves to railroad history. They really just didn't, you know, they just didn't care. I don't know how else to put it. They did not care. They took the name and they were the name, and otherwise they were just Gulford. Oh shoot, these are the ones without driveways. Pan Am was there. Pan Am was a railroad of all time. Yeah, so it was the Hillsborough branch that I had to do crossing inspections on, and that was the worst track I've ever seen in my life. M&NA of the Northeast. I wish I could say. I wish I knew enough about either of them to say. Also, Mopac, have you perchance noticed that the M and NA, if you just sort of read it out, it just spells mana. Which, effing magic train, it's a magic train. I'm gonna see what other house splines I have. Alright, those are all very small. Or very, very low density. I still have to go back to that one video from Gulford's first winter when there was that big derailment and the MOW crews went on strike. It's sort of, it's got the same vibes as the, if you've ever seen the Penn Central video, I think it was a Penn Central video, that was like, basically a cry for help, right? Like the please we need money video. M&NA is a magic railway. It's a magic train. But yeah, I've learned an awful lot about Gulford, about Pan Am. Well, not about Pan Am. About Gulford, about the D&H, about a lot of Northeast Railroad things with the Saturdays at Steamtown stuff that I've been working on with Casey. Which, that is a stupendous and incredible rabbit hole to go down. I'd like to think, even for just like a fictional world, right? It's a fun rabbit hole. Matt was here and Casey was here for different reasons. They were just here at the same time. And oh, excuse me. And I was like, damn, we got too many Pennsylvanians. So we convinced Casey to move to Rhode Island, and you know that might happen. Someday, maybe. Everyone should. Alright, there we go. I'm gonna work on these 3-deckers. There was a crossing in the Upper Peninsula where the crossing itself was rebuilt and they redid 50 to 50 feet from it. And as soon as you hit that 50 feet, it's instantly trees and bushes and the tracks disappear. Yeah. Yeah. There were a bunch of those up in New Hampshire. Like a bunch. Because the western end of the Hillsborough branch is all... It's all disused track. There's a quarry out there, and past the quarry there is, you know, like F all. There's nothing. But it still winds up for like a couple dozen miles at least, I thought, until it reaches where there used to be a paper mill, I think. Or maybe there still is a paper mill, it's just served by trucks. It's a very small one. But yeah, the Hillsborough branch, like, it's incredible. I've spent a few episodes wandering down there in Google Earth. One of my favorite things, because some folks will not have heard this story, out there, the best thing that I saw, aside from the worst track work in my entire life, was, it must have been B&M vintage, giant crossbuck. Like, giant crossbuck that was mounted about, 8 feet up on a piece of rail. Just a big piece of stick rail stuck in the ground of the biggest crossbuck you've ever seen in your life on this little back road. When the DOT makes you redo the crossing because you don't want to abandon it, but it's basically abandoned anyway, yeah. Well, if you don't want to abandon it, you gotta do the DOT stuff on it. That's really just encouragement to abandon. This is the kind of thing. I feel like we need to have more proactive saving the rails. This is maybe the unspoken downside of not having a nationalized rail network is we don't know what the hell to do with a disused piece of rail. We want to get more rail service, right? Just in general. Like I know we do, like the people in this chat do, because we're all foamers. We know what we want. But like environmentally speaking and efficiency wise speaking, like even if you love cars more than anything else, trains are good because then the trucks get off the road. Then you won't get like clobbered by 6 semis on I-90. Um, but if you have a big chunk of railroad, unless you are Vermont, if you have a big chunk of railroad that's gonna get abandoned, and by a big chunk I mean like more than a couple miles. If you have any amount of railroad, right, that's gonna get abandoned, because we have no state-sponsored operator, the state can't step in and go, nah, like, we'll take care of it. And do what with it? You rail bank it. I think mostly go to MDOT or the DNR and may become trails now. Yeah, I mean, and that's not the worst ending for a piece of railroad, because at least you get to keep the right-of-way, which is the hardest part. But, then you run into the problem where now people really like their multi-use trail, and it's an uphill battle to turn it back into a railroad, even though that was the purpose of rail banking it in the first place. It's kind of it's a weird situation to be in. It's a situation where, like, if we the people want more trains and we don't want stuff to be abandoned and shuttered, and more trucks on the road and less efficient movement and pollution, blah blah blah, like, we don't have the mechanisms to like do anything other than just turn it into a bike path. It's kind of a weird situation to be in. We did have one line go back in after becoming a trail. Another where I think the railroad kept the right of way. Yeah, and there are cases, where you get a bike path put in, and then it gets put in as like rails with trails. Okay, we want this railroad back. Okay, but people really like the bike path. Okay, but now there's enough like public support and private support via the railroad to do the studies and widen the right of way and this, that, and the other thing to make a rails with trails, which is unfathomably based. It's cool. It's amazing. It's great to be able to ride the bike and see the train. For the Rhode Islanders here, or even the New Englanders, if you've never taken a ride on the Blackstone Valley bike path, it's the kind of thing where it feels like they wanted a rail trail, but they couldn't do that because the railroad is not going anywhere. Yeah, final boss, the NIMBYs. But like it's the hilliest bike path in the state by far, because it's the only one that's not on railroad grade. It is just next to railroad grade. It's a really fun one. There's a stretch of track around here that really could have benefited from that. Mopac could have had a part of a Frisco branch, which would have cut 40 miles of the Houston Chicago main. It's tough to catch those things. It's tough to be that kind of forward thinking. Because just in a general sense, it's difficult to advocate for it, to say like, yeah, we'll need this eventually, so like don't get rid of it, especially when you're not the people who own it. A state, a city, a municipality can give all the incentives it wants to keep a railroad around, and the railroad can still kind of go like, no, I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna bail. There's not really anything anyone can do about that. And railroad's a private company, it's well within their right to do so. I mean, at the end of the day, railroad's job is not to move cargo. A railroad's job is to make money. It's a business. Or at least a for-profit railroad company as we know them in the United States. There are plenty of places around the world where that isn't the universal truth, where a railroad is deigned, whatever that word is, where a railroad is tasked with something else, with not just making money for the shareholders, but instead moving cargo or moving people or whatever. And I, this is at the crux of a lot of arguments about nationalization and about the regulation in the railroad industry. And you can go down some pretty serious rabbit holes on this, and just in terms of history and understanding, and not even the political aspect of it, which is difficult to understate. Um, you get these railroads who find easier ways to make money. It's like finding the meta in a video game. And if you know me, and if you know what what I do in terms of games and, whatever. If you've played Loco Dome, if you've played Merger Mania, you know that I am an anti-meta person. The moment something looks to be unusually good, like unbeatably good, not even just pretty good, but good to the point where you would never do anything else, unless you're LARPing, right? And this goes for OpenTTD as well. Actually, OpenTTD is maybe even a better example. But yeah, because Merger Mania, it's really difficult to figure out where the meta is. By the way, it looks like we're doing Merger Mania this playdate with the way the poll is right now. If you guys like that, go for it. If you don't like that, go vote for something else. I don't know. But Merger Mania is something where I keep adjusting it so that things get messed up. Merger Mania is a game where just in general, like, things feel like the meta, but because every round is different, every game is different, I'm not sure one is totally coalesced, but if there was, I'd be fighting it. When it became really clear that when it became really clear that I want to find some tenements. That just going for the smallest locomotive you could in Loco Dome would help you a lot. I created the 10% rule, which, well, I added the 10% rule, which limits your roster. So now you have to choose between a high-low end and a high end and a low-low end. And when it came to OpenTTD, when it became clear that something was the clear and obvious smart way forward, there's no then I had to do something about it. I had to change the way that certain GRFs worked. I had to increase this price and lower that price, and I'm constantly seeking this. I'm constantly seeking something where pros and cons are evident. I'm just doing an experiment in this block because I'm tired of the Boston 3-deckers. And when you look at railroading, right? When you look at what railroads do to make money, before it was move as much cargo as possible. Now, it's move as much of a certain subset of really profitable cargo as possible, because the rest of it just isn't worth it. And that's, intermodal traffic. If you know, you know. Intermodal traffic and unit trains like coal and other raw resources. Less than carload stuff, useless. The local freight, industrial switching, useless. Doesn't make enough money. It will never make as much money. And that is kind of a problem, because it means that railroads are not doing as much as they possibly can. They're doing deliberately less than their maximum capability, because it saves them money to skimp. And if we the people want more functional railroads, then we have to change the game. Uh, the railroads have found the meta. We should do something about that. And, there are reasons they did, and there are reasons that we allowed them to do it. You can't just go back to the way things were in the 1920s or the 50s, before deregulation. You can't just throw up your hands and say, fine, you know what, we'll try that again. Because there's a reason that doesn't work. There's a reason that the railroad started struggling in the first place. And that reason was interstate trucking, of course. Sometimes when people talk about railroading and the way things used to be and the way things could be now, they say like, oh, we should break up the large railroads. And on the one hand, like, yeah, I mean, that'd be cool and all. But the reason a lot of little railroads worked, aside from the regulations that we had at the time, were because they were only competing with each other and not with a nationwide system that can beat them on a bunch of metrics. The interstate highway system means that trucks are going to do an excellent job, just in general. Trucks are going to have a much easier time competing and a much easier time moving cargo, and there are plenty of reasons why trucking is so useful. Mason, you say, yeah, railroads have natural monopolies anyway. I mean, they do, but they didn't always. And there was much more room for them to compete with one another at this theoretical previous point in time. Yeah, if you're the only, like, most towns, even if you broke the railroads up back to what they were in the 50s, let's say, just as an example, most towns would still not have 2 railroads. Some would. Most wouldn't. Most towns would, and the vast majority of towns would certainly not have more than 2 railroads. If you roll back the clock a ways, then a town having 2 railroads was fairly common. Not crazy, but, it was something that happened with a reasonable frequency. Not so with all the lines that have been abandoned. With all the mergers, as things have been, cut back, we've approached and entered a situation where if you break stuff up, you just make a bunch of small railroads, which all have little local monopolies, and don't compete with each other, so that, like, the problem that you'd theoretically solve still isn't solved, number one. And number two, they're going to get decimated. They're going to get obliterated by trucking. Because now they can't compete as efficiently because they're not all together, Like, having a few, like a small number of very large railroads is very beneficial for those railroads and for railroading in general. Which is why having, one railroad properly regulated is even more helpful. But at that point, when the consumer doesn't get a choice, right? When your customer doesn't get to pick in any way what, like, who they do business with, well, then you need some strong regulations and strong incentivization away from exploiting that monopoly. It's hard to differentiate your service. You've mostly got speed, reliability, and cost. In a lot of cases, only cost. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's difficult to, like, trucking is easy, right? Driver comes, picks up a trailer, drives to where it needs to go, drops it off. Boom, done. You know, it doesn't have to languish in yards. It doesn't have to get switched. It doesn't have to get hitched to a bunch of different, manifests and locals and etc. etc. on down the line of the different trains it needs to be put on to reach its destination. That doesn't happen with trucking. So they have all these inherent advantages. It's just fewer man hours for a given ton of cargo, fewer, less fuel used for a given ton of cargo. And all of those things really just come out in the cost and nothing else. And then you throw in the fact that trucking is, pretty heavily subsidized because of the existence of the interstate system, and, the tax them all you like, it's going to be tough to recoup all of the funds that you pour into the highway system. So railroads are at this huge inherent disadvantage, and that's why they've gone to this, okay, we're only going to do the stuff that makes enough money sort of mindset, because shareholders need line go up. Because railroads are built on the backs of investing, and if you're not a good investment, then no one's going to invest in you. So it's a really... This isn't... I know I'm on a soapbox here a little bit, but really I'm trying to talk about the realities of the industry instead of a specific solution. At least the realities of the industry as I understand them from my limited perspective as somebody on the outside. I hear plenty from folks that are a lot closer to this thing than I am, but that doesn't mean I know a lot, even. Or, I feel like my strength, as it is and as it has been for a long time, I know a little about a lot, but I don't know a lot about much. I'm just trying to take what I understand and extrapolate into something that sort of explains the situation we're in. The fact that investing is such a metric is goofy. If it wasn't for everyone in corporate getting compensated shares, right? Yeah, and like the fact that railroads are publicly traded companies makes a sort of natural happy place for them more difficult to get to. No, you shouldn't need line go up as much as possible. It's just there is sort of the driving force in the industry of, well, we want our investments to matter as much as possible, so we're going to push for a paradigm where our investment matters as much as possible. And it's tough to blame people for that, It's not somebody doing something that, like, they're not being malicious about it. Shareholders aren't being malicious about, well, we want line go up, right? It's what they came here for. They're, when you invest in a business, you want it to make money. You want it to make as much money as possible. When you invest in a railroad, it means that railroad is going to have to try to make as much money as possible. It's not... When the thing you're seeking is profit, like, that's the point of a company, it doesn't really surprise me, and I'm not sure it should surprise anyone that railroads are out there seeking profit. If you had privately owned or employee-owned companies instead of publicly traded companies, maybe it'd be different. And yeah, there's been employee-owned or privately owned shorelines that have done really well since they're more aggressive on investing back in the company. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense that these kind of things would happen when your pressures are different, when your money comes from, oh shoot, I didn't mean to move that. When your money comes from something a little bit else than, a little bit other than share price, which is something that's influenced a lot by perception. Oh, this is a nice little barn. I should use this somewhere. That's just that's the reality of what we got here. Hold on. When the goal is profit and not stock price, they'll go for stuff that is profitable but not as good for the operating ratio. That's a good point. That's actually a really important distinction, because people will openly wonder, well, if doing this could turn them a profit, then why aren't they doing it? It's because it doesn't make enough profit. And if you don't make enough profit, you don't look good for the shareholders. And if you don't look good for the shareholders, then line don't go up as much as maybe your competitors, and people will rethink their investments. And that's a big problem, you know? Okay. Philly row house. These are cool. I recently downloaded these. I haven't messed with them yet. I like this little block of all the different high-rises. This is going to be fun to drive by on the branch line here. Sort of a weird one. Money for the company versus money for investors. I mean, yeah, in no small way, I would tend to agree that, it's not about money for the company. It's about the perception of getting as much money as you can. Not about the actual line, but about the perception of it. Because it matters, because the perception is almost the only thing that matters when it comes to stock price. I mean, look what happens to stocks when, I'm not sure what to do with the ground texture underneath these blocks. Look what happens to stock price when faced in a lot of times with just straight rumor. Straight rumor can tank a stock price and really do a lot of damage to a company. That has nothing to do with how that company is performing. So, if the buzzword is operating ratio, if the buzzword is precision scheduled railroading, then your stock price is going to go up because the people who will and would invest want to see that, because they've been told that that's the important thing to look out for. Frankly, profit is boring. Okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to fill these in. I'm just going to fill these in with this, and then we're going to have to go over it later when I figure out what actually to do with it. Because it's pretty plain right now, and I don't like it. But I feel like using the regular green texture underneath the row houses, or the three-deckers, doesn't make a ton of sense. I don't know why. I just don't like it. Alright. You have Tesla stocks that gain value and they don't have dividends. Yeah. There were things that I wanted to talk about that were not this. And then I got so sidetracked. I wanted to come back to it. I wanted to come back to something. But now we're all the way down this rabbit hole on stock price and everything. Oh, it was just that the thing with sort of positing this, right? With sort of breaking this thing down and saying, like, one properly regulated one singular properly regulated railroad, or maybe two but really just one, uh, is probably what's best for consumers. Because it means that you as a consumer don't lose anything in the shovel. And I know that's an absurd thing to say. A monopoly is better for consumers. Well, a well-regulated monopoly could be better for consumers because you've got all sorts of levers you can pull, and it's dead simple. Uh, and you don't need to worry about whatever happens in between because there's nothing that can happen in between. Uh, it's a situation where no, you know, different train codes, different dispatchers, different operating practices, different locomotive fleets, all of these things that are hallmarks of different railroads. If it's all one railroad, you get rid of all those problems. Duplicate yards, duplicate main lines. The things that you need for competition are tremendous drains on the resources of railroads in general. Nationalized railroad allowing private operators in addition to the nationalized service. I mean, that I wouldn't have a problem with that sort of hybrid system either. Nothing jumps out at me except I feel like it'd be strange to allow private operators like what do private operators add in that situation? I wonder. Because I haven't heard of that specific concept before, and it's intriguing. I just hesitate because what does it get? What does it get you? What does it get you? More than a just a plain nationalized system. A nationalized infrastructure with private operators. What does that get you? Does that? I feel like just off the top of my head, I feel like that works more for passengers than it does for freight, because passenger requires a lot less in the way of facilities. You don't need big sorting yards. You don't need big, big engine houses necessarily. You've just got. Sorry, I wanted to find a chain link fence. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. You've just got trains in yards, and they come out and they go around and they go to stations, and the stations are probably all owned by the, whatever. Innovative service type, like how Europe has budget and luxury trains in addition to the regular services. I mean, that works better for passenger than I would think it would work for freight. Like I feel like it works better for passenger services. I feel like a lot of these, like, innovative concepts in terms of what does, what can you do with some kind of partial or semi-nationalization. That I feel like a lot of that works a lot better when you're dealing with just passenger services, because freight networks, you need a lot more infrastructure, and unless you're having all your operators share all of the yards and everything, which I don't actually know how it works in other systems, then, which I guess you'd have to, right? You'd have to have your if you had a nationalized infrastructure but privatized companies, and you had your freight network there. Done that with a freight network. I guess you would be able to just consolidate all your yards down, and just have these companies share space in the yards. God, the contracts for something like that would be nightmarish to negotiate. But maybe it would work. I mean, I can't rule anything out. A lot of this, as we've sort of seen the continuing saga of the Class 1 meltdown over the last several years at this point, ever since Hunter Harrison started espousing precision scheduled railroading for real. Basically, ever since Hunter Harrison joined CSX, the Class 1 meltdown and the race to the bottom Bingo. Oh, shoot. I'm going to point the swings against the back here so that... Yeah, I need to give more room for those swings. Okay. Having more chain link fences is probably something to do. But this is why. I know a little bit about a lot. I don't know how these semi-nationalized systems really work when it comes down to the nitty-gritty. And just because they do work one way doesn't mean any proposal in the US, for example, would have to work the same way. We can look at what everyone else does right and what everyone else does wrong, what works, what doesn't. We have that opportunity. We have that luxury. And heck, we should do that. We should see. Because, as I was trying to say, the sort of continuing saga of the Class 1 meltdown, the thing is, a lot of the time we look at these things and go, well, I don't know how this plan would be any good. And I think a very valid counterpoint to that doesn't get trotted out as much as you'd expect, is it doesn't need to be good, it just needs to be better than what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is very not good. The sort of the continuing degradation of service and the inability of these companies to keep up with trucks and things in a field where that's basically all they should be doing, all they should be focusing on, and they're losing all sorts of market share, and as a consequence, it's making railroading as a whole more difficult, because any loss, any portion of any network that gets lost is connections that can't be made anymore. Closing down a rail-served industrial park means that that's a whole bunch of infrastructure that we're probably never going to get back. It wouldn't really make sense to. I don't know about the ownership of trucking companies, but honestly, I'm not even sure if it would matter. I'm not even sure if it would matter, because your real kicker is it's easy to just say, oh, blame the shareholders. It's their fault. They don't know what railroading is. They just they want line go up, and it's like, well, of course they want line go up. That's what they're here for. That's why they're shareholders. That's sort of what a shareholder should be doing, is caring about their investment. A trucking company, I think, is just not under the same kind of pressures, maybe. I think it's very... I think if I had to take a stab, it would have to be because the pressures on a railroad, what looks good for a railroad, and how to make it look good, is very different than that of a trucking company, because they operate in such different fields. A railroad can improve its operating ratio by cutting out routes and services in particular that are more difficult to turn a profit on. Not to say that they wouldn't be, but they're more difficult to turn a profit on. Terminal switching and manifest freight, there's a lot more man hours that go into getting a carload from point A to point B than a unit freight or an intermodal train. Even if those carloads make the same amount of money, they take different amounts of effort. If you look at semi-trucks, a carload is a carload is a carload. A truckload is a truckload is a truckload. There is no functional difference between picking up a load of, a load of books or toys or you know, steel plates or, you know, whatever. I mean, the only thing that would be outside of that boundary, I would bet, is like oversized freight, but that's kind of niche. Um, it's gonna take like any truckload takes the exact same, all other things being equal, whatever that truckload is the same amount of, it's the same amount of effort. It's a one cab, one driver, X number of hours. Because that's just how that works. The math in trucking is much simpler. Alright, let's just put that there. I don't know what I'm gonna do with all these fences. You know, and the point is, none of this might be correct. You know, maybe none of this is right, right? Maybe the things I'm saying aren't really making sense. Maybe I'm attributing cause A to, you know, or attributing effect A to cause B, or whatever. I'm not here to be an authority on this. I'm just trying to break it down. I'm trying to think about where we are and how we got here, and you know what exactly is going on. Because it pays to be that kind of curious. It pays to want to dig in and want to figure it out, because it makes you a more informed person, and you know, then you can use that knowledge to affect change. You don't necessarily have to be right about every conclusion you draw, but you have to have the experience doing that process. Uh, and looking at the different things and going, oh shoot, okay, yeah, that, wait, what the hell was that? Oh shoot, that makes sense. You know, let's think through this. Let's think this through. Um, oh, we have a bunch of passenger stations. That's a cute little station. It's got a bell on it. Let's not say we did. Well, no, I think it's important. I think it's important to do the think, because it'll help. All right. Yeah. Most of the stuff I said might not be right, and I'm willing to say that right now. I'm willing to lay those cards on the table. I'm confident in my reasoning, but because I know a little about a lot instead of a lot about a lot, I'm just sort of looking at what's, you know, on the table, looking at what cards are on the table, and seeing what hand one might be able to make with them. The difference in logistics, the difference in how these companies and things that might work, and where their priorities might be and why. Um, okay, let's fill this in. Okay. I mean, the neatly arranged rows of houses. Honestly, though, they don't look half bad. We might want to put some trees or shrubs or something in there, but, you know, we filled in a whole bunch here. Okay, so, as much as I want to go, 2 hours, all right, I gotta take a break. No, we should move on to the third act, as it were. Oop, I got pinged somewhere. Hang on a sec. Okay. Sorry. Remember to hydrate. Of course. Of course. So, we need to move on to the third act. So we did scenery. We got some of this stuff done. We did like one good sized block in here, which is, it might be a little out of place, but whatever. It was an area that had unusually high property values, and so they built stuff on it. What should we do? Third act iPhone factory. Hi, Redding. No, it's the Monkey Bananas, like, religious center. So I think the third act is, a lot of that is going to be here. And a lot of it is going to involve pulling stuff up out of the ground. So, let's see. Let's go into edit session. Okay, schedule it. I already deleted all the schedule at track mark rules. That's fine. But we are still going to need to move all these trains out and save all these consists. And yeah. Because there's going to be a lot of different variations here. And we're going to need to do all these variations because we're going to have to plug them into a portal. So, I don't really want to mess with this right now. I don't feel like we're in a great place to start cataloging all the different variations of train that we might have. And honestly, part of me is thinking, well, if we're going to automate the passengers, maybe we'll just automate a bunch of, like, a handful of generic trains and, you know, go from there. We're stuck where I was stuck at the, you know, during last episode, where it's like, okay, how much do we automate? Because automating just the passenger service is still automating a ton, like a ton. So, So, in researching the Baldwin 1012Ds, the Trench Railway engine, I managed to find an obscure survivor hidden away in a shed in an Indian sugar mill for the past 30 to 40 years. Holy crap. Well, that's kind of crazy. So, part of me is sort of wondering how much... okay, these two have to get added, I think, and then some of these also have to get added. Maybe these guys. That's why they're separated. Having a like a physical pick list for all the different train variations and all the different stuff like that. These commuter trains, they're pretty much all the same consist. They are a locomotive, one of these specifics, generally one of these specifics, and 6 coaches, 6 chair cars. Some mix of the New Haven, what are these? The 8600 class cars, and these, which are the 6800 class cars. It's some combination, it's some mix of those, and it's with these locomotives which are in a certain number sequence. These are in the 2100 number sequence. And if I remember, there's 50 of them. I think there's 50 of them. Oh no, there's I think there's 100 of them. Yeah, there might be 100 of them. But either way, they're in this sequence. And then we have these guys, which these would be on the other side of the map. Now, that's why this guy's super far back. This is a different class, of course. Although I think that number is wrong. Because, yeah. Oops. Yeah, I don't think, because I never set these up. these are a different class of locomotive. These are the different kinds of... Oh, these are the Mikados that we have. We've got this. We've got this. There's an oil burner, and this, which is an oil burner. We've got these different kinds of consolidations. This is the point of making the physical pick list so that I know what's what. These are the 4 classes of Pacific. Which this is... Oh, they don't have... I think these are in order of age. No. Yeah, well, oldest, second youngest, youngest. Something like that. And the Jefferson and Gilson would have been a coal-fired railroad. The Jefferson and Gilson is this on the north side of the peninsula. And then the south side of the peninsula was a different railroad whose name escapes me. And they would have been more of an oil-fired railroad. So, south and north on the peninsula are very different. But yeah, then we have the express trains here, like this guy. These are run by the Northerns. They don't have many of them. And then they have this, which is a run-through train from a different railroad. Gilson and not Jefferson, yeah. But yeah, a lot of this has to go. We have to tear out all these. We have to put these trains aside. We have to make a physical pick list somewhere. And these guys were all set up, and I'm kind of bummed that I'm going to have to get rid of them. But I think we can set them up. I think we'll have to find some kind of middle ground. Part of the goal for this release, when this release is done, is a fully functional staging with all the different freight commodities that you're going to need to run the map, number 1. And number 2, all the eye portals that you're ever going to need. Part of this is just going to be, yeah, because these are portal entry. I mean, I don't feel great ripping these out, but I'm going to have to do it. And then we're going to have to figure out exactly how we are arranging staging. And we're probably going to need more space to do it, because we're going to need more space to do it. I mean, just that's the fact of the matter. It's going to be a little bit of Factorio, I think. I don't necessarily need to cluster everything right up here at the edge. Alright, let's add a couple of tiles and see how we feel. Add one there. Oh, shoot. And also, we can probably ditch the... Well, no, I don't want to ditch the fact that everything's sort of on stilts, because part of that is intentional. And we can detail staging if we want to. We can make, like, the edge of a table for the edge of the world, or the built world. Good evening, Orion. And really, yeah, I mean, world's largest model railroad, exactly. Well, I would lie if I said that wasn't what crossed my mind. I feel like I need an excuse for staging to exist, and the fact that this is all a model railroad is, something that I never usually indulge in when it comes to trains, and this in particular. And like I said, I'm holding, myself in a little bit of words. hold on. Brain working. Brain working. I'm being a little bit hypocritical because it's like, okay, it's not real like you know, it's not real and it's static just like a model railroad, but uh yeah. Okay. Um Entertainment, world's largest G scale indoor model railroad. I've heard of that. Uh I'm making a world that I don't like when it feels like it's changing, but at the same time, I am making a world that I also don't want to feel like it's static either. So let's just lower all this land, and I think what I will work on first and foremost, is getting the eye portals in and getting a junction between our main lines on this side, because these are going to be the only things that come off the map in this direction. This is north staging, and we're going to be building out a whole staging yard over here. And this is kind of the problem with with wanting to do it as a model. I am so out of the loop on that. I've never done anything close. All of the years that I've been working in Trainz, the last 6 years or so that I've poured into this map have been, you know, doing a model railroad is the opposite of what I've tried to aim for. And not to say, folks who make model railroads in Trainz have made some absolutely beautiful stuff, irrespective of them being model railroads. Like, some of the model railroads I've seen look more realistic than plenty of the non-model railroads that I've watched people bang out. There's nothing inherently good or bad to either one, and there's nothing saying that one has to be more detailed than the other. But when it comes down to something like this, where we are going to make some track, it just goes in this direction. When it comes down to something like this, the real difference is my own experience. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never made a model railroad before. I don't know how to do the edge of the baseboard so that it looks right. Um, but we'll have to figure that out. All right, so I'm going to sever these for now, which means that this is not going to be runnable for a while. Um, so, and that is a good point, Redding. Um, Model railroads being more detailed because, yeah, because they're generally smaller. Because the scope is smaller, because the physical area is smaller, and you don't need to texture and detail all the way up to the edge of the baseboard. You just end the table, and you're good. And that's a good point. That may have something to do with it. In fact, I would certainly agree with the notion that it definitely has something to do with it in a lot of cases. Um, all right, let's go over here. All right, made it to Sturgis, Branson to Deadwood, and eventually connect to the Black Hills Central. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep filling this out, because having 4 tracks that go this way, I don't know if I'm going to keep all 4 of them, but it will at least let me build the ground underneath. Oh, why are we up at... Oh, shoot. The terrain edge here is not 0. That makes a lot of sense, because 0 is sea level, but I hadn't really considered it. What about... What is it? It's 10.9. Let's just go with 11 for simplicity's sake. Boop, 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 boop. I mean, I will say some of the most fun I've ever had route building was last week when I made a snow route for San Juan. It was a lot of fun using all the winter assets. Yeah. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's incredible. Seriously. Um, okay, let's do this. Alright, let's do this. Let's connect these up. And once we have this track up, we can figure out what to do with it. This'll be my track work fix, because I haven't been able to do much track work lately. Okay, so let's bring that up and that up. And the thing is, we probably... It has a lake. Oh, it has a lake. 90% of that in 5 days is very impressive. Okay. So there's a couple things that I want to do here. One is I need an in portal and an out portal. And in fact, we probably need more space than this. But I'm thinking a reasonably long yard for inbound and outbound trains. The other thing is we need to get these tracks in, so we need even more space, because these need to loop in and plug in over here. So we probably need a bunch more space in this direction. We need to plug this in here. And yeah, I'm just thinking for an eye-portaling purpose, we need some staging for trains going out, I would imagine. Some staging for trains coming in, I would imagine. So that we get... so that when trains do come in, they're not a problem. And no, I'm not taking a break from Bellington explicitly. I am... what's the word? What word am I searching for here? I am... This is my hour of not Bellington. I did 2 hours of Bellington. Part of me wants to actually fly over the two tracks so that the inbounds are on this side and I can send them off into the yard, and the outbounds are on the other side. But maybe I'm thinking too much like a metro system, and maybe what I should do is just have one yard that does both and connects to what I need it to connect to. Because, let's see. If I were to tie this in, which the curve here is probably as tight as I want to go. Yeah, counterpoint flying junction is cool, but we probably just don't need it. I think it actually limits our operational flexibility if I were to do a flying junction. Train too close. Yeah, that's fine. So this guy, I'm having this curve in to here, and then delete these. Yeah, and those two are going to stay there. Make sure movements and staging don't block each other, since you're not simulating any bottlenecks intentionally. Yeah, and that's true. I just don't know if I'm really going to, like... So, the idea for flying everything over was to have the arrival yard on this side, so that if I needed to run a train to staging after it arrived, I could do that more easily. Now, what I probably want to do, what I probably should do, is have these tie in here, and also maybe tie in to a track that runs this way, which would come off of this and fly under everything, which goes to staging. Kato train case on the asset. Yes, yeah, the Kato train case asset. Somebody has used that before in one of the route build projects where we did model railroads. It is pretty neat. If it is what I'm thinking of, anyway. So, okay. Fair Classic. I just wanted to get those two a little closer together. I'm going to apply 11 to these. Oh, shoot. Maybe so much for doing what I was doing. This I want to tie in. I want to bring it to over here. That might have been best done in Surveyor 2, and I did not. But also it doesn't really matter, because we can just make the other one match it. And this curve is fine. It's fine. Okay. Putting that there. Good luck on the railroad, Orion. I hope it's worth it. But, you know, I mean, working for the railroad, at least you get to be on the railroad. Okay, so we'll put that there. And yeah, having this be a... The real question is, will I need to have 2 out and 2 in at the same time? I would like to. It's just a question of... Okay, so really what I want to do is bring these guys into here, cut off those tracks, have this be a nice big flat junction, and... Yeah, and give enough space for these guys to come in properly. Now, I might end up having to rebuild this, but I have at least the vaguest idea of what to do here. Because if I can bring this in like this, like to right about there, and here, instead of having these sort of come off on their own, unless I just want to sort of be, you know, flagrant and just put these in the middle 2 tracks here. That's another option. Because what clicked into my head all of a sudden was, if I have 2 tracks from here drop down and go into staging, right? But which ones? And how realistic do we want to be with the staging? And how much space do we really want to have? I mean, we can continue this out for a while, but I would like to keep it relatively condensed. Alright, let me think for a second. Because I wanted to have a couple of tracks peel off of here, run underneath, have two tracks come down from here, meet them, and then run up to staging that way. I don't know if that makes sense to do. We could have staging over here, but then how would you get to it? Well, from here you'd have to cross over or under, and here you'd cross that way, and then we could pull it back and have the portals be way down here, and then have staging in here. But the thing is, staging isn't going to be just a yard for yard switching. Staging is going to involve a lot of the passenger trains. So we have to have a way to have the passenger train stacker sort of let trains onto the system, and maybe that would be over here even, because we just have like a bank of portals making stuff and then going into tracks for everything. Excuse me. Okay. What if I mark this off? This makes sense for passenger staging. PS. Staging is also a visual pick list. Yes, that's a different problem. That is a different problem. Right now, staging is being my physical pick list, and I'm gonna have to relocate all that stuff. But if the passenger staging is here, as in we have a bank of portals that are making trains, constantly, and they're spitting them out into local trains and then express trains and then whatever and then whatever. This is yeah, because I'm gonna have to build that bank of tracks, and then I'm gonna have them come up onto either the middle tracks, because your middle tracks are where your passenger trains are going to come in generally. And I can grade separate stuff that isn't critical. Or sorry, grade separate intersections that are critical and leave intersections that aren't critical as non-grade separated. This is actually pretty critical, but the thing is, if we're only going to have 4 portals, this does not make a difference, because trains will just clip straight on through each other, and I'm not really going to try to avoid that in staging. So let's put this here for now. This is what I was talking about with spitballing, right? I didn't know what to do, and I'm still not totally sure what to do, but this will at least let us get the ball rolling. So these trains going up that way, and I will put in a pair of crossovers here to facilitate this. Also doesn't matter if the crossovers are short, but space is unlimited, so. And it does matter if they have junction levers, and we're just going to use the regular default junction levers for this. Oh shoot, wrong button. Alright, there. So if we have this, this'll let trains get over to the VMR if they're coming in off the portal and they just need to go straight there. All right. And yeah, they might get in each other's way, but that's not the biggest deal. Okay. And passenger staging would probably be a single track that comes down from here and just pulls into here, because passengers are just, like, passenger trains going outbound are probably just gonna get destroyed instead of being reused. Like, maybe we can have a balloon loop, but it doesn't really make sense. And why am I focused on the passenger station? Okay. So we have these two tied into here. We have these two tied into here. And everything has got to come from, like, here at the closest. And I don't want it to be a spaghetti bowl. So if we have, okay, train coming down this way into staging, track coming down this way into staging, would meet with, let's say passenger trains are going to predominantly come in on the middle tracks. But we can allow them to do something else by adding a pair of crossovers here. Because that will allow us to have a track that comes out, goes over there, meets with a track that comes off of this and goes under here, and then branches out into all the tracks for this yard here. This is such a freaking conundrum. So what do I really want? What do I really need? Because I keep getting hung up on passenger staging when that is the least important part. It's important, but it's probably the least important part. We need enough room to do everything we need to do. We've got 4 tracks here. We've got 2 tracks here. And I want to pipe them into, well, let's see. For the Gilson Eastern passenger staging, if we look at the timetables, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, okay, 40. That's 40 trains, so we need 40 tracks. That's a lot of tracks. Even if I were to squeeze this right up against, and I'll make it extra long too to make the difference here. Oh, and I bungled it. That's 40 tracks for the Gilson Eastern trains, and then we're going to need another probably couple dozen for the other trains, for the VMR trains. But for the first time, we have like a decent number. So theoretically, if I were to try to get fan rank in the server after being in there for almost 3 years, what should I say? So that's a good question. Look at some. I would scroll up. It's been a little while since we've had a fan rank poll, but I would recommend just going up and taking a look at some of those. Personally, I'm not. I don't want to be your chat GPT. I don't want to tell you what to write. But the fact that you're an active participant in these here streams definitely is worth something. your interests and that you you know, work on Trainz machinima. Those are probably some important things to bring out as well. But again, I don't want to tell you what to do. Everyone's fan rank poll is different. It's just a little bit about yourself and why you would like to be a part of the server. Used to watch the Zombie Train? That's perfectly fair. Yeah, I mean, it certainly qualifies you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay. So we're going to need a little bit more than what we have here because I'm going to need to separate it into express and local and other. Because the portals that are going to be generating them, still traumatized after having a nightmare of what you described happening in North Korea in that universe. And yeah, and I think I took that directly from Max Brooks. Like, that wasn't even something that I made up. Which, yeah, I mean, if you want to be traumatized, read World War Z, the book by Max Brooks. Don't be confused. It sounds like it really doesn't have anything to do with the movie. I don't know how many tracks there are. I think I lost count. One, 2, 3. Oops. How come you're not? Okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Okay, I am too short. Why didn't they just grow plants? That I cannot tell you. Oh, they just shoot all the zombies down. R. Very funny. This is why I'd survive. Become a killer gardener. Okay, so that's 40 tracks. Alright? That's 40 tracks of staging right there. And I think I'm going to put this a little bit lower so that we can sneak tracks underneath. Kami Mean Land, based on off a similar name given an audiobook series called Tom Stranger. Cool. I'm unfamiliar. Okay. I have to put these at a level where the stuff can get underneath. And this is... How tall is our baby Ruth car? No, but seriously. What did I do for this? This is a difference of what? What height is this? Let's jump back to Surveyor Classic. Oh, this is 0, and then this is 11. Huh. I feel like we could fit more under that. Whatever. I'll go down to 1. I'll have a 10-meter difference. Or maybe we should just have this as 10, because that's close enough. No, let's keep it at 11. 33 feet in height. That's enough. Okay. Let's set these all to 0. And maybe doing this in a different order would have made more sense, but maybe having an auto clicker would have made sense. Come on. Okay. Just slowly work this up here. Hopefully we don't miss one. I'm clicking off to the left. We did miss one. There we go. Okay, so there's a Gilson Eastern staging yard, and in fact, we should probably include some overflow, but there actually will be, because a couple of those trains aren't. Well, one, a couple of them aren't north side trains, if I remember right. Um, yeah. Three local trains north of Gilson trains, south of Gilson trains. Yeah, so these are the north trains, but we're just gonna have like locals and expresses, I think, instead of having north and south of Gilson trains, because that is too complicated for the AI. Okay. 40 trains. Okay. And then what? So that's our passenger yard. That's going to be driven by portals specifically. Um, and honestly, I should probably space it out. I should have, um, you know, this one be the VMR yard, and the other one be the Gilson Eastern yard. Uh, the VMR yard is going to be much smaller. I think as of right now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So having it be half the size is probably fine. So if I jump back into Surveyor 2.0, and then I count. 1, 2, 3. I count from this end, because we have 40. 1, 2. It's going to be more difficult than I expected. 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'd see Orion. Okay, this has got to scoot over by... Let's just make it half. And then it's got to duplicate and go over. Whole way. Okay. So now we have 2 passenger staging yards. This is getting me in the handle of making passenger yards. Okay. We still need our turnouts for freight. And that is where things get interesting. Because unlike the passenger trains, it actually matters if this stuff is full or empty. I also probably want to include a second set of crossovers here so that you can go to these tracks if you want to, but otherwise you don't have to. If you're a train on this that's trying to go to there, you don't get blocked by a train that's doing this. The inbound, I think, is going to be very different than the outbound. Maybe it's a little foolish to keep all of this stuff together. And maybe I should push back the entry portal to here, or so that a passenger train from off system might be able to come in and pull into one of these slots. That's actually probably clever. Might be able to get away with that. Let me check my to-do list really quick, because visible track to dirt track, Rebellion, South Bellington, missing assets, Castle Farm area, Upper Doe Cliff Junction levers. reevaluate all industry commodities, seed all yards, engine houses, and industries, recalibrate all track marks, rename all switch stands in line with standards, rename all signals in line with standards, comprehensive passenger yard with train spawning, yep, freight yard with engine storage and car loaders for every used commodity, yep, we do need to do that, emptying portal, figure out how many portals we need and what they should do, display tracks, yeah, ML tram, recalibrate and rename all interlocking items, Mason Valley, recalibrate turntable track marks. Add mainline track mark and standardized interactive power names. Test a path rule works with automatic path selection. Add mail service to major towns. Clear out old automated trains that start in the line. We could get rid of that. Update and test ML tram. Okay. These all can go away. Because there's no reason to keep them. Okay. The thing we could do with 40 tracks is actually lay out all of the different potential consists. Now, I'm sure stuff would be a little bit different, but let's see. We just need to take care of this really quick. Come on now. Okay, so yeah, I think using this as a kind of physical pick list and laying out all the different commodity types and then figuring out the automation for them, yeah, that's something we can do. Let me continue clearing out this extra track that doesn't do anything. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a long run into staging. Do I have like a table edge spline? Let's see. Portal wing wall. Hold on. Search filter. I can just put it in a thread thing in the polls chat. Yes. Should be the only way you should be able to put anything in polls chat. I think I am wanting to make this the edge of a table, you know, the edge of a railroad table. So I'm gonna need to find some assets for that, I think. Okay, clear that. So if something comes out of iPortal, because that's the other thing. These mainline trains, these mainline tracks, are only going to be iPortal tracks, and I'm just realizing that now, because anything that gets brought out onto the railroad. Bear with me for a sec. And we've got 10 minutes left, so I gotta get this down on. I gotta get this out of my head and into the world, and maybe I'll remember it next week. The passenger train area is the only place where full trains will be coming out of portals. The freight train area will have a big old classification yard for stuff that's come out of the eye portals, and stuff that's going into the eye portals, and stuff that's coming off the map, and stuff that's going on the map. Now, those things that are going on and off the map and on and off the portals, they're not coming out of the portals as full. Well, the eye portal trains are coming out of the portal as full trains, and honestly, they're probably going to be fine because they'll be things that I ordered. Right? I'll say to somebody, "Hey, I need lumber, I need quartz sand, I need coal, I need whatever. Send me that," and they can put that on a train, send it through the eye portal, it'll come out. Right? The thing is, taking eye portaling out of the equation, there are no automated freight trains left on Tollbrand. Because there are no automated freight trains left on Tollbrand, freight cars will have to be generated, created, destroyed, emptied, and filled in staging. Not freight trains, freight cars. A while ago, many years ago now, like 3 or 4 years ago probably, if not more, I developed something in this very area that would create freight cars when you needed them. And I know there's a better way to do that now, but the gist of it is, if we go through every commodity that we need, that we have on this map, and we don't need a loader for it, but we do need an unloader for it. Or sorry, other way around. We don't need an unloader for it because we can make a portal that is send car here to unload. And boop, just send it through and it'll unload. As for loaders, though, we need to have a system, right? With a bunch of portals, one for each commodity, and a little train of, however many of those cars will come out of the portal. The engine will come off and it'll go into a portal and die. And it'll leave those cars behind. And it won't make another one. Well, we could have a thing where it just pulls them into a siding, and if that siding is full, the next train goes through, hits track mark, gets just sent into the portal wholesale. There was a way I learned where if you set things up correctly, a portal will stop producing trains because there's something in the way. I don't trust that. It's riddled with jank. But if I can make a module, let's just try it with a module. Let's do portal, portal basic. Do we have portal basic short? Yeah, we do. We need the portal basic short. If we have something that, okay, I don't actually want to, yeah. So let's just bring this out to like here. And then let's also have a siding. We need an example consist. In fact, it should probably be with invisible locomotive. So invisible train, that's fine. Classification, timetable train. Available for dispatch. Okay. This is a locomotive. Why is that backwards? I guess it's just pointing to the coupler. And let's just say, let's go to the invisible pick list. Or let's go to the pick list. Not one of those. Oh, we're going to need, narrow gauge is going to be a different problem. let's just grab... Where are my coal cars? Where are my hoppers? Other than that one on the left. I guess I have not gone through and done hoppers yet. There should be stuff in the change pick list. Freight stock standard gauge. I want a hopper because you can see if it's full or not. Not that kind of hopper. Not the wood. I mean, the wood chip hopper would probably do it also, but I'm looking for a specific thing. We can do logs 50-foot clinch. Why am I married to this? What hopper? What hopper? What hopper am I trying to find? It's B&O 55-ton hopper original. Are these in order? No, they're not in order. They're in no order. Nope, that's Chessie. Xeno, original. Alright, why, oh, okay. Is that this one? Oh, USRA 55, blah, blah, blah. This one is already on the list. This one has all the different, kinds of coal. Yeah. This one has all the different kinds of coal. Okay, so we're just gonna put this over here. And we're going to put it in the list. Yeah. Then I'm going to go over here. Where's the bromine tank car? It's over there somewhere. Sorry, distracted. Let's just say 4 of them. And in fact, this is probably not enough room. I need to move this guy out of the way for a second. Put him over there. Surveyor 2. Let's just say we want it to be double the length of the train. And the train is pretty much exclusively going to be a locomotive and 4 cars. Edit in Surveyor Classic. Yeah. So there's going to be a couple of moving parts here. One is this invisible train, which seems to have lost the locomotive. Oh. Oh, it's now much more invisible than it was. That's strange. So we should have this train comes out of the portal, it pulls up to here. It has commands. It says go to one of 2 track marks. And then there are 2 track marks. One here. Yep. And one here. Yep. Magic Mike's cousin, yeah. Let me turn these track marks trigger radiuses down really quick. So, and the track marks will have different, they will have different commands attached to them. This is too close to me. What is this? Which? Oh, it's the beach towel special, of course. Taking up 1,000,000 feet of yard space. So it'll pull up to here, and we also need invisible signal. Visible signal. This is going to be a unit that we should be able to copy-paste over and over again. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Factorio. There, and then there, which is why this needs to be so long. And the other thing is, So there's two things I want to do here. One is I want there to be, well, you know what? These can come out of the portal empty. They can come out of the portal empty, and yeah, yeah, because we'll have a set of empties and a set of fulls. My brain is turning. It's time to end the episode, but my brain is turning. So, right, bear with me for a second. We've got 3 track marks. Ah. Because we'll have an empties, we'll have a fulls, and we'll have a through. And that'll be fulls here, empties here, throughs here. Now, these track marks actually should be back here then. I don't even know if this will work. But this track on the right will have an industry, a multiple industry, that will always be full. It'll always have 4 carloads, and it'll refill every 30 seconds or whatever. Pull these signals back to here. Come on. And then we will have 2 things. One, a track here, which leads out, including a crossover like this. A very rail route sort of crossover, or set of crossovers. Let's make everything line up nice. Just because this is a prototype doesn't mean it can't look good. Okay. And then one of these tracks will lead to the yard, if you will. And the other one will just lead to a portal. Actually, no, not even. I don't need to do that because I need to check on how these, I need to put that in my notes. Automation. Test how decision is made with regard to multiple track mark options. What counts as blocked? So I'm forgetting an important aspect of this, which is I can just have the train delete itself. So instead of this whole apparatus where it pulls forward and then deletes itself, it can just the locomotive can pull off and just delete itself. But if I go back to Surveyor Classic, it is kind of aesthetically pleasing to have it pull away just to make sure it's out of the way, you know? So I can have it pull up to here. So here's the deal. Cars come out of the portal. They get to this point. They make a decision as to which one of these they can go in. If the left one is clear, it goes in the left. And this track mark says load at this industry, right? Load at nearest industry, which doesn't really make a ton of sense because we could use commands for this, but I want an industry here so that I can load additional cars if I need to. Which maybe even would implore me to add a through track like this so that I can do more than that number of cars at a time. And just push through additional cars. But anyway. Let's move this to the other side. So yeah. Cars come out of the portal. They check these in order. 1, 2, 3. If they can pull in here, they pull forward to the industry. They load. The locomotive comes off. It goes into here. And it deletes itself. It leaves the cars behind to pick up. If it goes into the middle, the locomotive pulls off and deletes itself. Pulls forward and deletes itself. It leaves behind the empty cars instead of the fulls. If it pulls into here, it pulls straight through and deletes itself. And that's it. And it would do this, I don't know, once an hour? Every hour on the hour, these portals, like hundreds of portals, try to generate a train at the same time. I'm sure nothing can go wrong with that. Okay. Do I want it to be able to clear the whole thing before whatever? Anyway. Yeah, so that's what I think we need to do here. We need one of these modules for every commodity that we have, which is quite a few. Right now, commodity balance is up to 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many actually unique ones there are, but if we look at olive alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So we need 32 of these little doodads. And that doesn't include like unloading machines, but we could just add an extra one that is just a pair of portals, and the train goes in one and it says unload, and then it spits it back out. The other one. With a 5-minute delay or whatever. But this is a refinement on something that I had come up with earlier. If anyone that's listening knows a way to refine this concept more. I mean, I know we can do it with fewer tracks, right? I know we can do it with fewer tracks if there is, we don't have to have this three-way switch here. We can just have this pull off, and it deletes it right there. But I'm worried about these two in particular just deleting the consist because it rolls into them instead of it rolls into the locomotive or something. Anyway, thanks for hanging on for this late ending. I'll see you all next week. This is the Admiral.